Well, I'm glad I went after the discussion, actually, because it's fantastic to hear such enthusiasm for Telecare, because as I think everyone has said, as soon as somebody uses it, sees what it can do, it's universally positive, it's a new tool. But the question we're always asking is, why is it taking so long? Why is it not used more? So I'll quickly, just some basic information about caring. I don't think this is going to be a massive surprise to people, but as it's Carers Week, I just thought we'd focus on that. So 6.5 million carers in the country, 1 in 8, and 3 million who are working, which is 1 in 9 in the workplace. And the financial contribution is huge, as I'm sure we all know. So the figure that we use is 119 billion to try and indicate that this is unpaid support that would have to be met elsewhere if it wasn't being provided. Caring does affect everyone. There's a huge amount of people. That's obviously demographically going to increase, which is why we're talking about technology. Obviously, technology is run by massive international corporations. They drive, the Apples and Googles of this world drive technology, and they're all of a sudden now interested in older people, in care, in sensors, and they're just coming into the market now, which means we're seeing a very rapid change in what's happening. So technology solutions for everyday life. So we use it all the time. We use it for everything, and we're used to it. The example that was given before of Skype consultations about how that isn't just standard. That's not something, we now, it becomes instantly natural as soon as we start using these things, but unless we see it in a certain environment, in the caring workplace, or the caring environment, we don't see that is how it should be done. And it's moving very, very quickly. I think the expectations of people now are much greater, and they're rising higher and higher to be able to use the types of technology tools for convenience, to make things easy for them in their private life than they do in caring responsibilities. So we'll just rattle through some of these things. So the virtual carers networks, including the workplace and the online forums, so they are massively valuable in just getting the information out there about what's available and how to solve common problems. Now, because of the demographics of caring, I don't think carers have been online or using the online communities haven't been firing up as quickly as they do in other fields. So this thing has a kind of it has a kind of snowball effect once these things actually start occurring. Once people have got positive stories about caring and they have a place to share those stories, the thing actually gathers some kind of momentum. So again, we've had some conversations about the various bits of equipment. Now, traditionally, Telecare equipment has been the medical-looking pendants and devices. And I think one of the main reasons behind that is it's always been sold through service providers, they've been sold in bulk. There isn't that much of a consumer market for people to look for Telecare solutions. Now, that is just beginning to kick off. So people are having more input into the design of these products. They're choosing things that are actually going to do something positive for themselves. I think the classic example is, we now have wearable tech. We have watches which do everything in the world. They've got GPS. We can read our email on them, and people can see the benefit. Sometimes when we give someone a pendant, it's just given to them for our benefit. So that's how it can be seen. It's given to them. It's not something that's theirs, that they own, that they use. And I think we need to shift that emphasis. And I think the design of the products now is showing that. I mean, it was really interesting to hear the example of having the mobile phone around the neck in place of a pendant, which was probably cheaper. It does 20 things at once. The person uses it, but it's not been tested and used for, within the telecare industry. So I think this shift away from these personal bits of equipment which are used by very large amounts of people that can do all sorts of exciting, interesting things, to replace these very dated-looking, potentially stigmatizing sort of types of equipment is going to happen. And as I said, it should be something that's a point of pride. These things are gadgets. These things are interesting things that do new things. And so getting the story behind that and showing that, these things aren't just, they do have a great benefit for the person who's wearing them. They enable them to have more freedom in their life. They're not just something that's sort of forced upon them. So the amount of information that's available online, as we all know, is increasing massively. The NHS is opening up after a very, very long period of time, and so being able to access information and booking things about access to your full medical records, booking appointments, repeat prescriptions. This is now, it's taken such a long time, but they are actually opening up about that. The thing is I registered with my GP recently and had my full medical record without asking for it. It was the first time I'd seen it all in one place. Not everyone even knows that you can get that now. And it seems that, the information about what you can access, even now, never mind what we're waiting for in the future, it doesn't seem to be getting out there. It doesn't seem to be known by as many people as it should be. Another example on here is just comparison websites. So I think everyone uses comparison websites to buy everything. I think you assume you trust people in a similar situation to you that you can speak with one-to-one to find out what's going to particularly solve your problems. Now, if you were to do a search on Telecare sort of solutions and products, there aren't these communities out there to actually have people who are using them share experiences as openly as they do with other things. So I think that's a very positive kind of change. So I think the speakers before me have made it really clear that Telecare or technology-enabled care services work. But when we asked in 2013, 43% were not aware of technology solutions to support them, which I think that number will obviously be going down, but I still think it will be particularly high. And for 70% of people to use technology in other areas of life, but only 30% to use it to help them care, that shows that there is a gulf between what could be provided by technology and what isn't. There is obviously problems with the language as well. Telecare is based on when it was going through telephone wires. People outside of our industry, I don't think they'll know what Telecare is, and I think it sounds like an old-fashioned word, and it is only when these words exist when things are just coming out. I don't think we'll be calling it in Telecare in 3 or 4 years' time. I think it will just be technology. It will just be tools that we use. I don't think it will have this separate sort of banner for them. So yeah, again, I think that the story is coming loud and clear that people would use Telecare if it was affordable, that it's generally seen as a very good thing across the board. For only 3% to say they would not use technology for care, that gives you some kind of impression. So I think I'll just sort of skip through this. So one thing that we do, we've just recently, we've done 2 things as far as products are concerned. We developed an app ourselves based on feedback for carers. This is to support networks of carers, and it's to provide them with a solution to a number of different problems. The first one is to have all of the information around caring in one place. The other one, which has proven to be much more valuable than I think even we had at least first guessed, is the social networking aspect of it. Because in a lot of cases, there may be one primary carer who takes the vast majority of a lot of the caring responsibilities. It's quite difficult for them to ask for help. And sometimes they find that when they're contacting people, they're only speaking about their caring responsibility. They're only asking for assistance with certain tasks. This gives the opportunity to invite everybody to view one set of information about what's required in the care of someone. It's possible to allocate tasks for people, but we were requested just to be able to create unassigned tasks. So instead of one person asking for help, it was just really clear what was required in the sort of care of someone, and people could sign up to actually take those tasks. The next thing that we're planning on doing with Jointly is to have it so that it can receive messages from other items of Telecare equipment. Because we find, particularly as Sue mentioned, the complex caring networks, which were people who maybe aren't involved that often, and when they're there, they might not have all the information to hand. This gives them the opportunity to find out what happened, if the medication dispenser didn't go off, okay, if there was an incident that if there's a slight change in behaviour or more information that might help better support both the person they're caring for and the other carers. That's it's proven very effective. So we've got some nice comments about Jointly. We found that when people have used it, the one bit of feedback we've had was they were just surprised that it was there and that they hadn't known about it. It was definitely sort of fulfilling or fixing a problem that people had. And the great thing for us is that once people are successful with doing it, they're really keen on telling positive stories about that. And I think that's one common thing throughout all of our work, is that it's just to encourage people to share the positive stories, both within ourselves and for carers individually. We're in the middle of a very big shift at the moment from the cost of this equipment coming down massively, it becoming much more affordable, much more prevalent, and the technology will always move faster than our ability to figure out what to do with it. When you consider that we have systems, I think when Sue mentioned the sort of length of a 6-year program, the smartphone is less than 7 years old. So we're doing work in these time scales during which something that we can't even imagine a world without it existing now. And it didn't, it had just been invented at the time that program started. So the technology is always going to be a massive leap ahead of where we are now. I think we'll find increasingly our ability to make strategic decisions and to do large-scale projects is going to be much longer than the scale of new technology coming. So the consumer market and people making novel uses of things which are just out and then sharing those stories is going to be a much bigger influential part of this. So I think the best thing that we can do is share those stories and basically improve the communication amongst ourselves and with others. Thanks for your time.